going for the lowest cost overseas supplier, not investing in the technology and the people, especially. And so you just, create a gap between those two communities. And, I see the opportunity for the US and for, advanced manufacturing these days being take those pages out of the military's playbook and apply them to the advanced manufacturing workforce and professionalize it, real focus on continual training and development. I think brighter days are ahead for advanced manufacturing with that kind of an example.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to another episode of DIB Innovators. Today I'm speaking with Bill Berrien, CEO at Pindel Global Precision. Bill, thanks for hooking up with us today.
Dave, great to be here. Really appreciate the outreach and excited to talk.
Oh, this is going to be fun. Well, first of all, I see something really cool on your back wall. Why don't you tell us what that is?
Yeah, so back there we have a Naval Special Warfare or SEAL Trident. SEAL acronym Sea, Air, Land, and in that you have the eagle for the Trident, so pitchfork for the sea, eagle for the air, and then the gun for the land. And otherwise called the Budweiser.
Very good. Well, thanks for your service. Love to see veterans of our military, making that transition and just kicking butt, leading companies. So this is going to be fun. Talk to me a little bit about your service, and then how that transformed and manipulated its way through the world, so that now you're, found yourself CEO of a, manufacturing company that's doing awesome things.
Yeah, no, great. Grew up East Coast. In college, was focused on more sort of finance community stuff. Senior year, though, had beers with a classmate who was trying to go to OCS and into the SEAL teams. I hadn't been aware of that path. Thought that was awesome. Next day, canceled all my private sector interviews. Went down to the recruiter office, which was great. Led to after a long wait, multiple reapplications trying to get the slot, led to almost 9 years as an officer in the SEAL teams. Attended OCS, went to BUDS, then went East Coast teams, SEAL Team 4 for 4 years, where I, again, had a little bit of a wait for my first platoon. So I went to did an ODA down with a 7 Special Forces group down in Columbia. All of those master sergeants and warrants convinced me to go to Ranger School. So I went to Ranger School when I got back. Still had time to kill, so I got asked to go to Sniper School. I was the only officer to go to like the 13, 14-week course there. Eventually got to platoon life in 2 platoons as the assistant, both focused on South America, so a lot of time down there. Then over to SEAL Team 2 for my officer in charge. Spent a lot of time in Bosnia doing some fun stuff, hunting, helped, part of a larger group hunting PIFWICs, persons indicted for war crimes. Great leadership experience there. And then out of the blue, got a call asking if I wanted to be the aide to the commanding general of JSOC. So Joint Special Operations Command at Bragg. Did that for 18 months. And, as they say in the community, you never forget your JSOC tour. Love that. It was 98, 99 though. And, it felt like it was pre 9/11, felt like the world was changing on the outside with the .com boom. So for better or worse, I left active duty to go use business school as a reset point, and always interested in the leadership side of life. Took a position with GE Healthcare out here in Wisconsin. They're sort of known in the early 2000s as a leadership factory. Yeah, brought me out here, and then some nice opportunities, both getting the skill set and getting the capital piece, gave me the opportunity to go on the hunt to buy a company, which I did in 2012. So, trying to compress that for you, but it was a great journey, and again, love the leadership side of life here, and especially now. Pivoting over to do more towards the defense industrial base.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I also did, I was the mill assist for the SecAF, Secretary of the Air Force.
Oh, really?
I can't imagine you separated after that job. I imagine the commanding general is not super excited about that.
No. I applied to one business school and hopefully otherwise would have, been heading over to Dam Neck. Yeah, for decade plus, whenever I saw, SEAL team or other, I'd say to my wife and kids, Oh, I should have stayed in. But yeah, wonderful community over, all special operations. And the adage there is once you leave the SEAL teams, you spend the rest of your life trying to recreate the SEAL teams in one way or another. And I've been on that journey.
Yeah, I can definitely, that resonates with me for sure.
Okay.
But let's talk about, we'll come back to that. But tell me about, first of all, Pindel.
Yep.
Where's the name come from? And then what do you guys do?
Pindel, it comes from the founder, Anton Pindel. I acquired the company from his son, Mark. So that was their last name. And it was called AS Pindel when I acquired it. Our business is contract machining. So bigger OEMs from Rockwell Automation, SpaceX, hydraulic companies, over to, SpaceX and aerospace and space companies. They design big things, but they don't want to make themselves all of the components that go into those larger assemblies. So they contract them out. And our expertise, our focus is, making other companies' parts. And our niche is high complexity at production volumes. So complexity features, tolerances, materials, everything from stainless up through Manel K500, having some level of complexity to it. And then, we like to make it a production volume. So sort of 1,000 to a couple 100,000 pieces, as opposed to prototype or low volume, or on the other end, sort of automotive high. I changed the name to Pindel Global Precision a few years after I acquired. And then 2018, 2019, we actually incubated another brand name called Liberty Precision, which is actually the arm of the company that specifically focuses on aerospace and defense, and represents a subset of our machines and our technologies.
So talk to me then, just, let's take your past experience, what an experience of leading, men in combat, and then what that looks like as you try to recreate that for your company. Tell me about some of the lessons learned and where you see, real traction and, pulling the leadership, that leadership laboratory that you did for 10 years into now, the business side.
Yep. I always think, just be totally accurate. My 9 years of service, got involved in a lot of fun and exciting sort of global operations, but not technically shot at. So, the combat piece, just to be precise, but the reality is you're training, you're prepping for war, every day. And as Wayne Downing, one of the generals in charge of SOCOM, said, special operations is not made in a day. So it's not something you can turn on and off. And I, like to think, the structure that we built, the people that I was lucky enough to interact with, they went on to great things in combat and global war and terror and all. So just to be precise about it. Yeah. And so it's fascinating. I've found these terrific parallels between special operations and advanced manufacturing, because I just think at its most basic, both communities are about highly cohesive, highly trained teams enabled by advanced technology, trying to punch above their weight. And when you think about special operations units, again, highly trained, highly cohesive, enabled by technology, whether it's insertion technology, communication, weapons, all letting them do, more in this environment than it would have taken multiples of their number to do in past environments. And that's the same advanced manufacturing these days. You got the highly trained, highly cohesive teams with automation, CNC, now increasingly AI. An individual can put out so much more complexity and value. And so at its most basic, I see that parallel. And I've also found, if you treat the people and you develop the teams, or try to, in the same way, it is really, really good outcomes. So how do you push autonomy to these teams, getting away from sort of a micromanaging environment? How do you continuously train? How do you, ask them to be making decisions for the benefit of the customer, the benefit of the company? And, celebrating your wins in sort of SEAL or special ops style is always good too. So, just really, really neat parallels. And we can talk later about, some of those other parallels around the military's best practices in training, especially NCOs, which has a lot of relevance to manufacturing, or it should have a lot of relevance.
Yeah, let's go. Let's dive there just for a little bit. Like what specifically, as you look at,
Great.
and not everyone knows what the training for an NCO is. Like, so maybe start with that, and then how that parallels into manufacturing.
So, I mean, NCO, it stands for a non-commissioned officer. So it's between the junior enlisted and junior officers, and it is a professionalized NCO corps. Is the reason our military is, as strong and as sort of as mighty as it is. And, especially if you look at the history of NCO development, it really, took a hockey stick up when the all volunteer force came into existence. They added additional NCO levels, but they really professionalized the training, the expectations, the academies for each one of those levels. And unfortunately, at that same time that the military was professionalizing its NCO corps, the manufacturing world was making really complete opposite decisions and, going for the lowest cost overseas supplier, not investing in the technology and the people, especially. And so you just, create a gap between those two communities. And, I see the opportunity for the US and for, advanced manufacturing these days being take those pages out of the military's playbook and apply them to the advanced manufacturing workforce and professionalize it, real focus on continual training and development. And, I think brighter days are ahead for advanced manufacturing with that kind of an example.
Outstanding. Yeah, I think those great illustration of your people are your best asset, right?
Yeah, totally.
All right. So tell me then, on the advanced manufacturing side, where's your sweet spot, bread and butter? What do you delivering to? Let's focus on, I'd say, the DIB side, but you can,
sure,
inside, but you can talk about that.
This is the DIB podcast. We'll focus on sort of the Liberty Precision side, which is that side of the business where we're pivoting over towards the defense industrial base. So our sweet spot is those complex turn parts of production volumes, and we use a technology called CNC Swiss. So it's a sort of a subset of the lathe world where, a lathe is your material is spinning your bar and you're, applying tooling pressure to make features. But Swiss, it harks back to the Swiss watch industry when you needed to have smaller, really complex, very tight tolerance parts. All our machines are, a couple of decades ago started being made over in Japan, but what they allow you to do is really, really sort of incredible. The complexity, the volume, the consistency, the quality. And, that's what we have focused on. And that's what we give a lot of attention to. It's interesting. We were at a trade show 5 years ago out in California. And the first day, these 3 SpaceX engineers walk up to the booth and they go, "We've been looking for you." And we go, "Great. Why?" And they go, "Because you've got this CNC Swiss technology, and we don't see it out here on the West Coast. The West Coast, aerospace companies make very complex parts, but they're bigger. They're usually milled or out of multi-axis lathes. But in the Midwest, there's a center of expertise around this CNC Swiss technology." And so that's been great. When I first acquired the company, though, the technology was all older, multiple parts in multiple operations with less technology. We invested under my ownership in this advanced, very automated, very sophisticated technology to do parts in single operation. But best yet, we trained or upskilled the team that was already there to master that technology. In over 10, 12 years that I've been here, those folks closest to the automation have seen their wages double, if not triple, and, worth every penny. And I think it's an example for Wisconsin and for the Midwest and the US in general about reshoring and manufacturing, everything we've seen under the first Trump administration of let's not be outsourcing to China, let's make it here, let's keep jobs here. The future is about high levels of automation, highly utilized by a highly trained, highly paid team. So yeah, I think the future is bright, and it's not about low wages. It's about, high skill, high wage.
That's great. So we'll come back to the workforce. The CNC Swiss, like what does that talk to a layman about? Like what are you actually doing? Like how is this different? And
So if you think about CNC Swiss, it's a big box. Think of sort of 4 feet by 4 feet by 4 feet with tools, sort of moving, simultaneously in there that are drilling, they're milling, they're turning, and you've got all these operations going on at once. And connected to this box is a 12-foot long, we call it a bar feeder. So you put 12-foot lengths of bar in that. So as your CNC Swiss makes a part and it drops off, the bar feeder pushes more bar into the machine and the next part gets made. So a lot of sophistication and making really complex parts, whether it's ventilator, bone screws, or rocket parts or hydraulic parts. But it is about a lot of tools, think drill bits, think things like that, making these features of parts simultaneously.
And the advantage is obviously precision, and then speed or volume that you're able to do this.
Yep.
And consistency.
And consistency. And when you think about whenever you have simultaneous tools in the cut, features being made, you're reducing your overall time to make that part. And when you get it at its most basic, we're selling, time, technology, and talent. And the less time it takes to make a part means the more you can make, in an hour and a day. And you're coming in at a lower cost for the customer, but a higher sort of profit for your, that lets you invest in the team and the talent.
You had two kind of, I would say, to me they appear as bookends of like things that you make. Talk to me about the ventilator side all the way to the rocket side. Like what's kind of the difference there, and who are your partners in these?
Yeah, for the ventilator during COVID, we first heard the call, early innings of that, where ventilators were key and stockpiles were being depleted. We got asked to make, actually by SpaceX, because Elon Musk raised his hand to help make ventilators. They were making some of the most complex ventilators on the market, and we got asked to make the most complex valve components within that ventilator. And these components, metal sealing surfaces, so really tight flatness callouts, a lot of holes, a lot of features. And that led to, the opportunity to make for them and other aerospace companies lengths of metal pieces that, mix the gases going into rocket engines or go on satellites, part of thruster systems and all. Yeah. So it's really cool. I mean, our almost everything we make is 3 inches in diameter or less, but it is at, volumes, as I said, so 1,000 to 200,000.
And is it just the CNC Swiss, that you differentiate yourself with compared to your competitors, or is there some other magic sauce? Like how have you positioned yourself to be successful?
Yeah, it's interesting. The game of good positioning and margin and all is really about capabilities and then certifications. So how do you differentiate yourselves in an otherwise pretty fragmented industry? So the Swiss technology is one, but we're also AS9100 certified. So certified for space and aerospace, ITAR certified. So our ITAR registered. So, US only population workforce trained to be compliant to those State Department regulations. And then a couple of years back, we completed all our controls for the CMMC certification, which for your listeners is it's like a cybersecurity maturity model. It basically confirms that you have the right cybersecurity controls to protect defense industrial base and DoD information. Because, without that, you get Chinese fighter jets looking remarkably like US fighter jets, as you know. And and so that's the game. And often the only thing more challenging than making the part is measuring and confirming that you made the part correctly. So we pair that machining technology with really advanced metrology or quality technology. So CMMs, a SurfCom, roundness and profilometer checkers and all of that. And and then the digital package that helps bring it all together.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, you mentioned the Chinese fighter. That's part of the reason we started Radical is how do we stop,
Totally.
the information from being exploited by our adversaries? And part of that is CMMC. A lot of the listeners and a lot of the folks I've had on are, it's a challenge. It's struggling. You've got, especially when you're focused defense industrial base, the margins are set. They're not that great. You're trying to get your foot in your startup. Talk to me about that journey for you. Was that challenging or was that, just a matter of commitment?
Honestly, Dave, it is challenging. And after this, we can talk about how I'm part of a group trying to help more manufacturers in Wisconsin bridge that gap and contribute to the defense industrial base. But the old adage that relationships are the coin of the realm, honestly couldn't be more applicable here. We're not, my company, and actually, most of the companies in Wisconsin aren't really going to supply directly to DoD, with our product, because DoD really isn't looking for machine parts. They're looking for, higher level assemblies and, products and things like that. And the true opportunity for us to contribute to the defense industrial base is by being, a world best in class supplier to the defense primes. And the soon-to-be defense primes, like the Andurils and the Palantirs, in addition to Lockheed and Boeing and all. But that all comes down to relationships. How do you, sort of break into the Boeing procurement scheme, or the, Lockheed, or, some of these newer players are more open to, finding suppliers. But, a lot of the legacy tier ones have their suppliers from the last 20 to 30 years. And even though, we and all these other manufacturers across Wisconsin and the Midwest have just world-class capabilities, it's tough to break in. So it's been slower than I hoped, but we're persistent, and we're, working as a group here in Wisconsin on, I think, some pretty innovative stuff to try to bridge that relationship gap at scale to help the manufacturers in the state contribute more to the defense industrial base.
Yeah, that's great. And how is, from your perspective in the manufacturing, be it the DIB or non-DIB, these advancement in 3D printing, AI, how is that affecting both what you're doing now as well as your roadmap?
We have not seen the lines cross with 3D printing, that it has the tolerances nor the speed to make the volumes of parts that we make. It definitely has its application in parts of the defense industrial base, but it hasn't gotten there in our world, and there would be sort of too much post processing and other things that have to go on with that. So to date, most of the parts that we make were designed to be machined. And I think the real advantage of 3D printers is making parts that theoretically can't be machined, because you can't get tools into those places, and those kind of parts have functions that are beyond what a machined part can do. Now AI and is I think an enabling technology, just like automation, just like CNC is. Over the past couple of decades, and starting to accelerate, you're seeing this digitization of manufacturing. And while if you look at the total time from part getting awarded to first parts and production volume coming off, CNC technology, in the production, it scrunches the white space, compresses the production of the part, but you still got a lot of white space on either side of the production. And the advantage of AI and robotic process automation, RPA, stuff like that, is to pass that data more quickly, maximize that data in different ways, and squeeze that white space so that time from award to parts going to customer can potentially be a whole lot shorter.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like just one little ad. We started up a company off to the side a couple of years ago based on COVID era experiences of disrupted supply chains and super long lead times and all that. And it's called ProdX, Production Expediting Technologies. And we either call it Global Manufacturing's 911 or the Uber Black of immediate demand production machining. And what we did there was we identified all these machine shops across the country that had terrific capabilities and were terrifically qualified, with AS9100 and everything else we talked about, and occasionally have excess capacity, just like an Uber Black, professional driver, black limousine, stuff like that. And if they have excess capacity, how do we access that capacity to make parts for hair on fire customers really rapidly? So we don't need to go too deep into that. It's a little bit my undernourished side project, but your question there around AI and such, I say that ProdX is skating to where the puck's going. It doesn't have max value right now, but once we start to leverage AI and can program parts faster and order material and set up QA sheets and all that stuff using AI and other technologies, I think we can really accelerate manufacturing in this country in general. So, material.
Oh, that's very cool.
A DIB podcast.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. I like it. Well, if we look then, just at the manufacturing supply chain, what things as a collective are we doing well, and what things do we need to work on? Like what would be the big, I would say, across, as a leader in manufacturing, you look at what would be the game changer type of items that the industrial base could make that would make a difference?
Well, I think we still see a pretty good portion of the manufacturing ecosystem, especially the smaller companies, manufacturing companies. Maybe they're a couple generations into family ownership, things like that, haven't fully made that investment in automation, in the software products that help a person do more, quote faster, like paperless parts, or high QA that we have that preps all your quality documents and does your PPAP automatically. And so I think those smaller companies need to be helped along to help increase the velocity of manufacturing in the country. And then I think, again, going back to prior comment, that business development opportunity. How do we share manufacturing needs with manufacturers that are maybe not engaged, especially around the defense industrial base? How do we bridge those relationship gaps? I think that would be the key opportunities there.
And that's something that comes up with other guests I've had, and just knowing this space, and have been working with other companies' workforce. So yes. I imagine this is a passion of yours, as with most manufacturers. Can you talk to me a little bit? Is workforce changing? Where my thoughts are generally, everyone's like, yes, my kids, kids should go do this. It's high paying. It's a great career. But then as I look at people that have kids, no, they got to go to college first. It's good for other people, but not my kids. But yeah, it's a good here. How do you see kind of the workforce management and some initiatives that you think might, are we in a good spot, or are we struggling with the people?
The pendulum is swinging, which is great. You're starting to see past 10 years more high schools reintroducing industrial arts, trade school programs, those maker shops that, appeal to a broader, population of interests around making things. And I often find one of the most powerful things is simply giving high school tours, because it is a world. It's powerful, and I think you'll agree with the second part. It's as powerful as talking to kids about the possibility of military service. The examples aren't out there, easy to see either what a career in manufacturing could be, or what military service could be. And as much as we can introduce them to both worlds would be fantastic, because it is. Look, as I mentioned, the folks that are closest to the automation that we've invested in have seen their wages double, if not triple, over 10 years. And, we're seeing, another doubling in the next 10 for those same folks. And you can have terrific, rewarding careers, no degree required. And if you want to go off on certain paths that, where a degree would be helpful, those are, you don't have to do those right out of high school. You can do those later, or, or you could do them out of high school. But Dave, one of the big areas, I think the big gaps in our society is a focus on those who are already in the workforce, age 25 to 75. And how do you give them, new skills, because industry needs are changing, technology's changing, personal interests are changing. And yet we seem to, as a society, live under this mistaken belief that what you learn in the first 25 years of life is going to last you for the next 50. But, nothing could be farther from the truth. And, if we really want to catch this ball of manufacturing reshoring, manufacturing renaissance, we need to figure out how to upskill those who are already out in the workforce. And when I start to see a mid-career apprenticeship program for someone who's 35 and has been doing retail for 10 years, I'll know we're thinking that way. But you don't see those. All this focus is on those who are 25 years or younger. So in terms of trying to make a dent and make a contribution, we conceived this program that we call forward skilling. Forward is the Wisconsin motto since 1850s, and forward skilling takes a shared economy model and it applies it to upskilling. So if you were to say, hey, go get your people upskilled, the knee-jerk reaction would be, okay, got to send them over to the technical college to, go attend some courses. We're finding that technical colleges traditionally aren't the right environment because they're more focused on those who are coming out of high school, early career, all of that. So this shared economy model, what we did, again, sort of like Uber, Airbnb, we coordinate upskilling training that takes, maybe it's the technical college curriculum, but it's taught by an engineer who's on the beach, who doesn't have, not having stuff going on right now at company A. It's taught in a free conference room of company B using training tools that aren't being used at company C. Just like, Uber is, someone has their car and their time and they're not being monetized. We're trying to access all of these unused resources to, accelerate that upskilling training. So we've got a phase 2 of our pilot going on now here in Milwaukee, where we've phase 1 was using just Pindel employees. Phase 2, we've pulled in other companies' employees. With the focus of this little pilot is Swiss production training, how to increase people's skills to keep the machines running, advanced troubleshooting and problem solving and all that. Yeah, and so applying this shared economy model, my vision would be the same way you have whatever it is, like 6 times the number of ride seats, Uber rides, as you did legacy taxi cabs. Or I think it's like Airbnb is 8 times the number of lodging nights as legacy hotel systems. It would be great if we had 6 to 8 times the number of training hours through this model as you were previously able to in the legacy technical colleges and stuff. So a little innovative, we're
oh, that's fantastic. I mean,
yeah, why not?
What a neat way to tackle the problem.
Yeah, and it doesn't just have to be manufacturing. You could, the 2 elements of it are, serving as a coordination center. Someone has to, our group is sort of pulling those elements of the courses together. But often the courses are already out there. How do you just serve as a clearinghouse to say, you want a tooling course, you want an Excel course? Well, those are already out there, and here's how that can feed into your career path.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, you also hear the narratives of AI is going to crush, entire job segments are going to go away. But that mentality of how to, bond together.
Yep.
There are needs out there. What a great way to do that. I like
That's right. And it's not going to be AI that takes someone's job. It's going to be someone else using AI.
Right.
It takes,
absolutely. The advancement of those technologies will create less of a demand for certain types of employees. Then what do? They're not just going to sit on their couch eating ho-hos, watching reruns of Friends. They now have an opportunity to,
that's right.
Go find something.
Yeah, come on in. And we've got a philosophy of hire for attitude, train for skill. If you bring the right attitude, we'll get you the skills, but if the attitude's not good, it usually doesn't last long.
All right, we're gonna have to wrap up here in a second, but really quick, what's next for Pindel? What are your big milestones? Where do you see yourself, in the next year, or maybe the next 5 years? What's your trajectory?
I see a doubling of the business in the next 3 years. I see the introduction of AI help augmenting the output that individuals both in offices, in our offices as well on the shop floor. We have never let anyone go because their area was automated. We just shift them over to a different area of growth, and the same is going to apply for AI. So I see a doubling in the next 3 years, as hopefully a 50% increase in profit margins with that, at least. Over those 3 years, and then I think we try to play well in the sandbox and bring others along. I think I mentioned I'm vice chairing this Wisconsin Defense Industry Council that is trying to create a defense cluster in Wisconsin, and we're working on that matchmaking problem of introducing. So, Wisconsin is number 1 per capita in manufacturing, but the number 30 in contribution to the defense industrial base. I'd like to see us, next 3 to 4 years, number 10, up from 30 in contribution to the defense industrial base. And I think that's doable. And would love to be back on the podcast in 2 years and check in on how it's going.
Absolutely, no, definitely would like to have you, and maybe go talk about products. Yeah, those will be fun. Let's do that. Let's get that on the calendar. Well, great. Well, if folks want to, learn more about what you're doing or even connect with you for opportunities or partnerships, how best to do that?
Yeah, I'd say looking me up on LinkedIn is really the best. To be honest, up until COVID, I was a total LinkedIn stalker, never posted. And then with that ventilator jazz going on, I did a couple of posts and I saw the viral power of views and comments and all that. And now I sort of use that as my soapbox to talk about workforce upskilling, advanced manufacturing, all of that. Just had a post actually yesterday, taken from special operations community known as the quiet professionals, and sharing with the advanced manufacturing community. We call it the 10 tenets of the quiet professional and how that applies to advanced manufacturing. So yeah,
I love your parallels. They're fantastic.
Well, the military provides a great touchstone for that.
Absolutely. Hey, well, Bill, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you.
And we will get back together and stay in touch. So
love it.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Take care.